my consciousness is entirely mine, and your consciousness is entirely yours. And I think we can only evaluate what, as best we can, what a particular action, what impact a particular action has on my consciousness. My consciousness is my whole life. It's everything I got. And so is yours for you. And I don't think we can ever compare my consciousness to yours, because my consciousness is as important to me as yours is to you. My cat's consciousness is as important to her as mine is to me. The crab's consciousness is as important to the crab as my consciousness is to me. It is each consciousness is a whole universe. And I don't think that we can meaningfully compare them and hold that one is more valuable than another because one is able to manipulate a certain set of skills or abilities that another can't. And I think that's where Singer went wrong. But I have a question for Anthony. I live with rescued cats. And I think that their lives are considerably better lives than they had before they came in. And I think that they think so too, but I don't know that because I can't get into their minds. And sometimes I find myself wondering and worrying, do they love me? Or is this a form of Stockholm syndrome? And I think they love me, but if I'm pushed, I don't actually know that. Can you comment on that? And beyond that, if we don't have intimate social contact with members of other species, is there not a danger that we will lose our empathy for them? And they will therefore lose our compassion and our sense that they are in fact conscious beings. And in the process of separation, we'll start back to treating them instrumentally again.
I think that's another flaw, is that if the cat didn't have a nervous system, we can exploit it, that creature. If the cat doesn't know how to speak and doesn't have a language and doesn't have a culture, as Noam Chomsky said, and then there was the ape that was called Chimsky, and that knew how to do sign language. And so we try to minimize it to justify our exploitation of a creature, rather than saying, no matter what this, going back to that rock analogy, and I don't think it's important, and I think people need to stop saying my dog and my cat and snake love me. Like, you don't know, and most likely if they really had true consciousness, which they might, they don't love you, and I think it's highly insulting for a prisoner to say, a human prisoner to say that they love their warden. And no, they're just trying to get by in the system that they are in. And we have, unlike a warden and a prisoner, we have the obligation, the accountability, and responsibility to do what is best for these creatures because we put them in a predicament of hell.
I have a question, actually. So when we perpetuate the issues, with animals, service animals, do we get rid of them, release them to the streets, and then they'll be left to suffer to their own devices? Or we have them in our homes, and they're essentially, like you said, imprisoned. Where do we draw the line for acceptable behavior? When one chooses to adopt an animal, and we know that having animals in our homes is probably not going to help the issue of overpopulation of these animals. But at the same time, you adopt the animal because you know that you're saving it from potentially being euthanized. Where do you draw the line? Or is that maybe just a matter of opinion?
I don't think we have the answer to what's a better alternative because of the way memories of the home than I do. I think that relationship with me, they have a lot more power than maybe some other people's homes, but, so I'm still digging into the archaeology of my own thoughts and feelings on this, and I don't know.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Yeah.
Why put like value or weight in terms like, for example, schizophrenia or other medical terms? Like, given that they are basically just invented categories, invented terms used to describe, power characteristics or whatever, why is use of that word outside of the context of individuals necessarily problematic? Or like, why does like using schizophrenia to describe a similar pattern of like delusion or whatever in another context doesn't necessarily conflate that with individuals? Why is that necessarily demonizing that population? Like, why is it problematic to use the word schizophrenia if it's not in any way referencing the group of individuals who've been historically labeled with that term?
One thought on that might be that there's still, maybe always will be, great power and prestige and status accorded to the medical community and the medical profession and the specialized language of that profession. So if you're talking their language, you may not have a right to talk their language about something that's not medical or psychological or something. It's kind of the weight of that scientific paradigm. That may be one thought.
Couldn't using those terms in different contexts potentially like take out the problematic connotations of the word, like using schizophrenia in a different context would remove the negative connotation or
I
like
think that's,
reappropriate it?
that's, the only people that can appropriate and reclaim a term, if you look at the realm of social justice, are those that are in the community that are being oppressed, like bitch, or the N-word, or mad, or retarded, or, which I don't think will be reclaimed anytime soon, or crip. Those are being reclaimed by those in the community that were identified as that. So I think that's part of the appropriation of reclaiming. But I also think to not recognize how this one term has allowed for a ice pick to be thrown into somebody's eye and whipped around in someone's brain for almost 100 years is to wipe out one's history on that term, right? And moron, et cetera. And I think blame, and I think these terms, if they're going to be reclaimed, need to be reclaimed by that community that's being oppressed and not by an individual to, again, not say it in a positive way, but say it in a negative way, saying like, oh, schizophrenia is bad. What makes schizophrenia bad? It's a beautiful thing. I know a number of people that have schizophrenia. It's awesome. It makes their life difficult in a normalized world, don't get me wrong, and it's really stressful and hard. But I see them as a beautiful person, right? But they're having struggles, like I have struggles in my life because I have certain categorical, definite terms that have been framed together, right? But I hated myself for a long time, I got the scars to show it. But I think I have the right to reclaim that word and certain people don't.
But every time you isolate a word in that manner, say that only X population that has that externally imposed on them, schizophrenia, the word or whatever, or the category, is a description of numerous sorts of mental connotations. Like, are you giving weight to that? Aren't you allowing the demonization of populations, or you're allowing them to have that negative conflation? Like, why should they even have to, one,